Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Councilmember Robert Cornegy, Chair of the Committee on Housing and Buildings. I'd like to thank Councilmember Torres, Chair of the Committee on Oversight and Investigations, and other members of the Committee on Housing and Buildings and Oversight and Investigation for joining this oversight hearing on the third-party transfer process. At this afternoon's hearing, we hope to receive testimony that will shed light on what went wrong during round 10 of the third-party transfer program, and to prevent future occurrences that will further lead to the displacement of people of color in gentrifying parts of this city. I'd like to now hear from my colleague and Chair of Oversight and Investigations, Chair Richie Torres.
Thank you, Councilmember. Good morning. I'm City Councilmember Richie Torres, and I chair the Committee on Oversight and Investigation.
My name is Paul Saunders. I'm the son of Marlene Saunders. I was born and raised in Brooklyn. My dad is over there as well. I got involved in this by chance. Normally, I go down to Department of Finance just to make sure the taxes are current and paid for to keep the property out of any types of problems. So actually, in April, I went down to double check on the taxes and made a payment that should bring everything current. So I thought everything was fine until about a month or so later, I started receiving random notices on the door. It was simply like a page that was affixed to the door that said, tenant notice of upcoming building inspection, a chance that you might be in foreclosure. So once I saw that notice, I immediately went back down to the Department of Finance on Geralman, and I went to the rep and I said, look, I received this notice on my door. Here's a receipt of the payment I made for the taxes, and trying to see what was going on. Unbeknownst to me, the payment that I made via check was deducted from the checking account, but was never applied to the actual account in the Department of Finance. So there was still a balance that was showing, even though the money was deducted from the account, which we found out to be rather odd. So there was a back and forth process of talking to the rep to see what was going on. The email pinged around through different members in the Department of Finance just to figure out why the payment wasn't accepted. Then they told me about a interim process. And so they said, look, contact the water department to see, what's going on. We see that your taxes, have been, we see that you've made a payment because of the receipt. So went to Department of Water and I said, look, we're at Department of Finance, and they said to come over here. There might be there's potentially a water bill that's owed. I said, I'd like to pay it. She said, look, you can make a payment. I said that they're saying that there's an interim process of what's going on, but they didn't really know. They didn't really have any details because on the water department's computer, it looked like it was a account that had a balance that was in no means of being taken or foreclosed or anything like that. So the computer systems didn't show that there was anything that was a problem. I spoke to HPD about the problem, and they said, look, we see that there's no particular issue with your property taxes, but check on your water. So then again, there was no data if you have to check by a certain day or time, or this is what can happen to you. They said, just check the water. So once DP told me that there was no problems, that I was just planning to make normal payments just to extinguish the debt to the Department of Water. So around September, I believe around September 5th, I wound up seeing a notice on the door that said that, notice to residents of the property, the building has been transferred and the new property manager is Bridge Street, and there's a document that literally was affixed to the door, and it didn't look like official, it looked fake. So once again, I went back to the department. I said, look, this is the notice that I received, and they really had no clue about TBT, so I had to do my own investigating about the TBT program, which was labeled on the note. And it basically stated that there was very limited information on New York City's website about TPT or the process. You couldn't discover anything, and then literally the only thing that I found was just a simple one page of a few sentences that said, HPD's third-party transfer program designates qualified sponsors to purchase and rehabilitate distressed vacant and occupied multifamily properties in order to improve and preserve housing affordable to low to moderate income households. It was a very broad statement, and I was just curious of why the property actually got into the program. I had no notice before. The property it's not distressed, it's well maintained. Everything is current. We've had no formal complaints for over 30 years. So literally, like, nothing's happened over the time. So we were just really curious about the process of the property going into this third-party transfer program. So during that time, my mother and my dad were stressed. I mean, my mother's heart pressure, we went to the doctor's office. I mean, literally, like, the thought of just losing a house for, you know, a water bill of roughly $3,000 was just like something that was just, I mean, the state of depression and the state of this, like, physical, like, harm that put my parents in was really devastating to me. The other thing that I discovered when we spoke to the attorney was that when she looked at the houses that was in this program, it seemed like most of the houses were, like, hyper-focused on, like, communities of color, and just, it seemed like it was hyper-focused on elders.
My name is Carmen Kwamina. I'm apologizing. I'm not this kind of person. I have 5 days the landlord gave me when I would be evicted for about the 6th or 7th times since I own my property at 580 East 84th Street, Brooklyn, New York, 11236. And as I'm speaking here, I own a deed in my hand, but several other people own deed to that same property. I hire 2 attorneys to help me with the confusion that went on in the courts. My only hope was my husband, who I married for 55 years, that I just lost through the same kind of problem. He was choked to death in Brookdale Hospital by a nurse coming and give him a cup of pills without no water. If my husband had a cup of water like this, he would have been in my bed to massage me every night. He died right in front of me. So the tragedy of my house stolen from me, when I gone to bury my mother, the 2 lawyers called me back and say, you know what, Ms. Kwamina, a predator is going after your property. I said, who is that? His name is Jeffrey Myers. I said, I don't know that man. He said he went to your house and tell the tenants, don't pay no rent. She is not the owner, I am. And I say, nobody can enter my house. I pay my last mortgage. I own nothing. Now, the house now, I come, file the bankruptcy. They say, but lady, why you file bankruptcy? Wait till your lawyer. I said, no, I'm stopping them from doing what they're doing while my lawyer is working. Not knowing that the 2 lawyers I hire was helping the predator to get my house. Get up in the courthouse and concocted this malicious thing. But it's good thing I have all my documents. And I make certain I put all the documents in the DA office with Mr. Richard Farrell. All of them know my story. Where is Mr. Farrell? He did not come to help me. I had to be fighting. And now the 2 lawyers have got to be fighting. And now we got to fight the predator, Huga. And now I was given no time, and I was evicted. I can't fight no more because the 2 lawyers who are supposed to represent me is the thieves. And they're concocting with the judges, with the lawyers. When I do investigating the case, the judge said, no, you can't take this out from this woman.
Mr. Dorsey, this story that he's accounting, and it's been very stressful on him, this process began in 2018 in the summer when he went to pay his tax bill. He is a Haitian immigrant. He took pride in owning his building and, bought it with cash, had a small mortgage on it for different reasons over time, paid that off. And it was, when he tells you the story, it's always a sense of pride to go down and pay his bills. When he went down in June or July to pay his bills, he was given the runaround, and this is the account that he gives. But what's interesting is that runaround went on over a course of about 2 months without HPD or DOF or anyone at the city saying to him that his deed was previously seized in 2017.
My name is Brenda Stokely. Whatever this group is, this working group, we need to be on that group. Our say-so needs to be on that group because we're living in those places every single day. And we can tell you all of the things that we try to go through, people taking money out of their own pockets, money out of their own pensions to help keep it alive. You need to know that, because we're not sitting there being slouches and trying to get over on anybody. We're trying to live in housing that originally would have gone by the wayside if for not us living in them and doing the best to keep them going on all these decades.
Hello, my name is Deanne McDonald. I was kidnapped out of my home. I paid for my home in full. I was in foreclosure. All my taxes been paid. I've been in my home. We've been in our home since 2003. All the water bills are paid. We fix up our homes, and no matter what, our home is stolen. We had an order to show cause to stop, to stay the sale of our home, and still the fraudulent foreclosure sale went through auction. I reported this, and there's no lien on the property. I reported this to the DA. Of course, they don't want to deal with it. There's too much favoritism going on and too much on the table. Yeah, the judges are not doing their jobs. They're ignoring it. After all this, they sent us to housing court, brought us in there to take us out of our own home. They got a judgment against us. And I keep on showing them over and over. I have the last deed to the property. I showed them a certified raised seal of the deed, and they totally ignored it. They put a judgment against me to evict me, to kidnap me out of my own home with my deed in my hand and my ID identification. I spoke to Farrell's office, and they said, look, that should have been over right there. You have your deed, you have your ID, you've been there since 2003, you owe no taxes, you owe nothing. It's been really tough because they took me in the slammer, and they held me for 3 hours and let me go. I didn't see a judge. They came to my house 3 times. Before that, trying to get me out of there. I showed them my ID and my deed, but the third time they couldn't, the third time now they got me out. I am so sorry, because when you have homeless homeowners, you have homeless tenants too. And I'm so sorry I couldn't help them. It's okay. I'm so sorry. The tenants have to suffer too, because they know if they took me out first with the deed, then they could take the tenants, because now I'm separated from the house. And I'm so very sorry that happened to the tenants too. And now they want me to go into the homeless shelter when I worked so hard. I worked so hard. 7 days a week I work to pay for my home.
This issue is incredibly emotional. I understand that. I'd like for you to take some time with my chief of staff to see if she can be helpful.
They didn't tell me to go into a shelter after I paid all that money. I showed them my tax papers. I showed them my 1040s, that this is the house has been paid for. I showed them everything, and they just ignoring it.
What borough are you in?
Brooklyn.
Okay.
Flatbush, Flatlands area is where my home is. I want back the home for me and my family. My father worked so hard. He's a senior citizen. Every order to show cause that I put into Supreme Court, they deny it, decline to sign it. And they have the marshal came into the house.
So you said that the Brooklyn District Attorney has your case?
we call them and they just look the other way. So now I have a criminal case for trespass. How could I trespass on my own property I paid for? I don't understand this. Just give back the homeowners who pay for their home back. What is so hard about that? What is so hard? We work so hard for our property.
Hello, my name is Kingsley Palmer. I'm going through the same scenario that she's going through. Okay? Citibank bought a foreclosure against me, okay, about 5 years ago. And during the process of them bought foreclosure, I got a paper to show that they don't own the mortgage. I bought it and I showed it to the court. They didn't recognize none of that. And during the process, another company or mortgage company took it over. And during the process of me going through back and forth with court, showing, what's going on, they put my property up for sale and they said that they sold it or whatever. And when they sold it, I brought them back into to the Supreme Court with a order to show cause, from the civil court. And during the process of that, civil court get an order to evict me. So they evict me out of my house. They came and they arrested me, for no, for no apparent reason, you know what I mean? I have an order to show cause and a stay from Judge Dare, which I know that I don't want to say the word about him, but at least he gave me a stay. Even to this day, I still have a stay. I'm out of the house at this particular time. They put up a open house sign on the door, right? I have pictures to show you on my phone, right? They took over the property and put a big sign. It's just nothing but disgrace. About 6 squad car came and arrested me. And it's just been.
I think we're prisoners.
Yeah, you know me. I do construction.
For one person?
I do construction. You have up and down times.
Crazy.
You know me. Right now, it's a little decent time. I'm working over the Hudson Yard, and at the time I was going through the foreclosure, I was down on my luck. But modification, I tried modification. That doesn't help. Nothing don't really help. You know what I mean? Me and my wife now she's just staying with friends, and we are separated. You know what I mean? From all of this going through back and forth and stuff like that, because she works in Brooklyn. So it's hard for a big man to cry, but it's kind of rough.
I can't imagine what the stress and anxiety is around the loss of a house, especially when it's through deed theft and/or deed fraud. I think that the next major hearing that we're going to have is around deed theft and deed fraud. So I mentioned at the onset of the hearing that there are 3 things that are disproportionately affecting our communities as it relates to home ownership. One is the third-party transfer program, and that was today's hearing, and we've heard some cases that were egregious. And then there's deed theft and deed fraud and the lien sale list. When you hear all of those, they sound the same when it's displacing homeowners, and it is absolutely a terrible scourge, and it seems to be focused intentionally on minority communities, unfortunately. So while today's hearing was focused and centered around third-party transfer, I am acutely aware of the disproportionately negative impact that deed theft is having, and that the lien sale is having on displacing us from our properties. I really want to thank you for your testimony, and I can assure you that we will follow up with a subsequent hearing that deals directly with deed theft and deed fraud. Oh, this is the part where I say this hearing is adjourned.
Good morning. I'm Councilmember Peter Koo, and I'm pleased to chair the Committee on Parks and Recreation. Today, the committee will be voting on a pre-considered bill that will ceremonially codename 86 thoroughfares and public places throughout the city. This is our semi-annual bill where we seek to honor the individuals and organizations that have made lasting contributions to the people of our city. Some of these include codenames for active community members, heroic New Yorkers who sacrificed their lives for others, people who committed their lives to public services, or those who greatly enriched the city cultural landscape. I'm proud to support this bill, and I urge my colleagues on the committee to vote in favor of this legislation. So before we vote, any members want to make any comments or statements? Seeing none. Any public want to make any comments or statements?
Alice Blank.
Okay.
And I'm a member of Community Board 1. And I just wanted to make a statement. We're very much, of course, aware that street co-naming happens all over the city. I know Board 1 has its bylaws that make it quite clear that they're not very much in favor of co-naming, given the number of streets, the difficulty of getting to these streets, the history of these streets, the density of these streets, and the extraordinary amount of folk who merit honors, of course, for all of the tremendous amount of tragedy that Community Board as one has seen. So I just wanted to note this particular street, and just I state, we all appreciate the vitally important role of the police in our community and the fallen officer, Sergeant McNaughton, whose life was tragically lost in the valorous service in Iraq. But when a community board votes against co-naming a street, it must have an important reason for doing so, and its members do not expect that their views will be disregarded without directly engaging them, without sharing any reasoning, and without confronting the community's reasoning. The small act raises large questions about the integrity of our community board process. The council should be urged to consider allowing the community and the community board that represents them to have an opportunity to further discuss and consider these street co-namings. The community board was not made aware that the street co-naming was going through without any consideration. In other words, we as members did not know this was going through. We also want to add that Sergeant McNaughton, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself, certainly not Community Board 1, Sergeant McNaughton has been honored with a bronze plaque in the Canal Street subway with his name entered on the police memorial in the Battery, and honored with namings in several areas in hometowns in Long Island. Community Board 1 has had immense loss and many heroes who merit recognition, from the loss of 9/11, the recent terror acts in Hudson River Park, to the many fallen heroes in their line of duty. The community rightly must be very careful to be fair to all those worthy of honor. Thank you.
Can you call the vote?
William Martin, Committee Clerk. Roll call vote, Committee on Parks and Recreation. Councilmember Koo.
I vote yes.
Cohen.
I just want to say we're voting on William Scribner Way, and I knew Bill personally. He was an incredibly talented individual. I vividly remember taking my daughter to see him conduct Peter and the Wolf concert at the New York Botanical Garden. He will be sorely missed, and I'm really very proud that we're able to do this today. And with that, I vote aye.
Thank you.
King. Aye. Van Bramer.
I just wanted to also mention and call the names of Frank Corrado and Ethel Plemak. Frank Corrado was unofficially the mayor of Long Island City, and a Korean War veteran and someone who I knew very well and who everyone loved, and he died very recently. We all miss him already, and I know he would absolutely love this honor. And Ethel Plemak died at 108 years of age. She happened to live on my block, and she was an early pioneer, working until she was 96 years old. And when she left her employment, she sued her employer for age discrimination because she still wanted to work. She was an amazing woman, a legend in Sunnyside, and she also happened to be the mother of a very, very famous artist and the grandmother of an Academy Award winner. Ethel Plemak is a legend, and it'll be thrilling to co-name my very street after Ethel Plemak. So with that, I vote aye on all. Thank you very much.
Jonai.
Aye on all.
Moya. Rivera. Adams.
Permission to explain my vote?
Please, yeah.
I am really, really pleased today to have the inclusion of this package of street co-namings in the memory of Herbert Lewis Huntley Sr., who was a stellar hero in the Jamaica area. And I'm very, very proud of his service to his community. Among many other things, he happened to be the very first African-American manager of Dan's Supreme Supermarket in Jamaica. He was a stalwart example of a role model for Jamaica Queens, and I proudly vote aye on all.
Thank you.
By a vote of 8 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and no abstentions, item has been adopted by the committee.
We are reconvening the recess meeting of July 18th, 2019.
I'm Gail Brewer, Manhattan Borough President. All right, so thank you, everyone, and we're here, as I believe, to look at the proposed resolution that is dated the 23rd of July, and there may be comments or suggestions that people have. I know that the chair of Board 6 had some. You want to be sure that your changes have been made?
The changes were made. Stephanie had already made them, but I do have one, and again, Stephanie, your office will be making this change. It's based on the CB6 resolution. As the securing of funding for a flyover bridge at the pinch point and preparations for its construction. No, it's not in the resolution. I'll read it. Are now guaranteed the protraction of its schedule, which isn't set to begin until the other parts of the ESCR are in place, is an unnecessary disruption to the use of the waterfront, and we expect the ESCR revisit the staging plan and look at ways to begin the flyover bridge construction contemporaneously with its north and south improvements. So that's been funded, and we'd like to see that within your resolution as well. Thank you.
Councilmember Rivera, did you want to say anything?
I don't see the Jamie Torres Springer from the Department of Design and Construction, but I wanted to add on the record that I was disappointed recently in a Gothamist article where he was quoted as saying, "In this case, we came to a conclusion that we can't deliver the project without a full closure of the park. It is very unfortunate." The reason why that's such a disappointing quote is because we are actively trying to work on the priorities of our community. And it is clear that many neighbors have come to testify for phased-in construction, in addition to mitigation, in addition to a number of things. So I'm unclear as to why that comment would be made on the record to a reporter, and it's alarming. So I'm sorry that he is not here for me to confront him, but I want to get it on the record that I am disappointed. That is not how you enter into negotiations, honestly and openly, when we're all working for the same thing. And I just want to thank every single person who made it to the Borough Board today for your time and for your effort in advocating for what we hope will be a resiliency plan that is a model for other cities.
Jim Karras, Special Counsel to the Manhattan Borough President for Legal Affairs and Land Use.
For 5 more minutes.
For a couple more weeks. So it's the Manhattan Borough Board resolution in front of you with the one change proposed by CB6, and that would be to add on page 7 in the therefore be it further resolved list of bullets, the bullet, as the securing of funding for a flyover bridge at the pinch point and preparation for its construction are now guaranteed, the protraction of its schedule, which isn't to begin until the other parts of the ESCR are in place, is an unnecessary disruption to the use of the waterfront, and we expect the ESCR to revisit the staging plan and look at ways to begin the flyover bridge construction contemporaneously with its north and south improvements. So that will be added into the final version sent over, and with that, we can call the vote. Councilmember Chin?
I vote aye.
Councilmember Rivera?
Aye.
Councilmember Powers?
Aye.
Councilmember Rosenthal?
Aye.
Councilmember Levine?
Aye.
Councilmember Ayala?
Aye.
Councilmember Rodriguez? Chair of Community Board 3, Alicia Lewis-Coleman.
Aye.
Chair of Community Board 6, Molly Hollister. And the Chair of the Manhattan Borough Board, Manhattan Borough President Gail Brewer.
I vote aye, and I just throw in the caveat of a thank you to everyone who's made this possible, from the amazing hearings that the community boards have held, all the work of the council members, certainly of the city. And I say, having watched projects over the years, we are going to have the most robust oversight community stakeholder meetings on such a regular basis like no one has ever seen, because this is a huge project, maybe even bigger than the amazing work that the council member did and others have on rezoning. This is a huge project, and it's going to take everybody's effort to make it successful.
We have 10 votes in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and no abstentions. The vote passes.
Thank you, everyone.
This meeting has now ended. Thank you.